Sombra tries to dive.
Looks like Toronto Defiant the far action early on. I don't hate it. I mean, Gladiators are finding a bit of a struggle, I think, to get decent value out of some of their tanks when they're running the Moira and the Lucio. Very mobile tanks, so those healers aren't really suited for what they are running comp-wise, but it does give you a lot of mobility and a lot of raw power if you're sticking together and staying together. But early days yet, see the Toronto Defiant are the ones with a bit of control of position. Gladiators going to start to contest this. Hook sent out from Agilities as he tries to get at least one early pick for the rest of his team, but they are going to flip the point over in their favor. They are going to control it for the time being. But the early picks going their way. Rip jumps on from far. The backline just being assaulted here as OG picks up 2 kills. And a great dive attempt here, very well coordinated from the Gladiators, means that they've got the OG pickoffs. However, Resurrection's going to get traded out here, and the Dorado comes out early on from Seek, and look at that!
Yeah, the Gladiators had a massive opportunity there to be able to flip the point over and really solidify control, but the barrage coming out from Zik, a guy that we haven't really seen too much of throughout the season, and mostly on the main, to be honest, but coming out there with a great performance on the bar. Move on to Agilities, and the Gladiators, they are trying to hold on to this point here.
Toronto Defiant can also, really, they have a lot of staying power. You look at what they've got to work with, it's Anubis, slapped it onto Agilities. I know some teams were prioritizing D.Va as the nano target, but we'll see. Gladiators need to get a good EMP off of Mirror. It's going to be one of their major weaknesses. Yeah, this
Catching the Farah and the roller as well, and he individually is able to focus down the Farah, gets an individual hack onto Grid to make sure that Anubis can't bounce, saves everybody as well, and the Gladiators with a well-executed team fight win.
That's beautiful as well. Exactly what you can see Mirror as well, target prioritization. He knew he didn't really have to deal when he was hacked up in the backline. He could let his team deal with the rest of it, which is signs of that, you know, they have a lot of trust in their general team play. And now the point is going to be back over to Gladiators. He's going for an aggressive approach straight away with the coalescence, leaving it in. Trying to get an early pick off. Struggling a little bit. South is going to be sent in now from space, and he does take out the ring. So wonderful opening.
Grid is going to get rezzed here, and the Gladiators, they're using a sound barrier. They are committing very heavily here, but the coordination and the focus fire just wasn't there. That is the second time that Shaz has used his coalescence to try and kill Zik, but Space isn't attacking the same target. They need to coordinate that between Space and Shaz to be able to take down a Farah. They can't just do it with only one ultimate.
The fact that they got no team fight went out of that sound barrier on the whole side right now. Taking so much spam damage from above. See Agility's now using that whole hog. OG born across the map, shredding them with the scrap gun. Now, one still in contention with 2 picks. The Gladiators struggling to hold on to this one. That loss of players, just spamming him from far here. The Toronto Defiant going to be flipping this one over.
EMP versus EMP, we've seen many times throughout this season where the EMPs are cancelled by another EMP. Just that micro millisecond timings can mean everything when it comes down to these final moments. Only 3 seconds left for the Gladiators.
EMP comes out now from the Toronto Defiant, leading into the front line, but Mirror comes in with one of his own. A little bit better still. OG goes down, traded out, big goose to the environmental kill, never kicked out of the fight. Agilities has to try and clutch this now. One hook could do it, he can get a kill and secure it. That Cruz as well, managing to secure the rest. Trying to turn this one around now for the rest of his team. Translocated back, the Gladiators running this one into the fray. Desperately trying to turn this one into their favor. Finally a bit of time, Space going to get DVA now onto the point. The whole hog across the map from Agility, fight to seal the deal here. The players coming all from every angle. But will it even matter in the end as round 1 just desperately trying to turn away, and it does finally go away. Nevix is a real jack-of-all trades player, and he always has been. Really good meta for him to try and play this. Hook is going to connect. He does find the target, finds Space, but luckily his team were there just to try and peel for him. See Logic's now off against the 3, and the Gladiators are wrapping all the way around, trading the positioning here. Nevix looks like he wants to try and trade a couple of blows, but it's a difficult endeavor for him. Try and get up close and personal like he wants to. A lot of this is relying on Agilities.
It's a pretty solid rush comp on the Toronto Defiant, except that they're very spread out and they don't really have an off-tank that synergizes. So they're relying on agilities to get a lot of individual picks. And in the meantime, the Gladiators can just spread out and surround them and put damage from around. You can see how they've just corralled them all in one small area of the map.
Just a dividing conquer strategy, kept the building up the early pulse bomb, and after enough damage being pumped into the butt, gives them the coalescence, not good enough. Grim unleashed it a little bit too early there. He got a sliver of health and ended up paying with his life. Not the end of the world for the Toronto Defiant though, I will say that. Despite the fact that they lose that team fight in the end, they did get the early control point because the Gladiators were forced to rotate around with the positioning. And this is a big part of you know, how the Gladiators are going to be finding success, I think. It's going to be those rotation, finding the positioning, a bit of split and trying to find the pick up the aggression early on. If he comes out with a mirror, turning it around, an aggressive approach to try and win the team fight early, and they do just that.
I think that's fantastic, and if Mirror hadn't gone down just then, he would be able to farm so much more of his EMP afterwards. The idea is great. Unfortunately, the death from Mirror is not that good because he can't build up to a next EMP, but they can still rotate their ultimates very effectively. You think about how easy it is for Mirror to build his EMP in these fights. He's fighting against a Roadhog, he's fighting against a Reinhardt that he can get behind as well. It's Christmas for a Sombra in this scenario. And the Gladiators, they're going to be able to respond to any ults that the Defiant throw out, other than 6 EMP. That's the big one to monitor for the Defiant.
What's the joke when I said all of this relies on agilities? Hook plays, you can see the sound barrier used to keep logics up with his dead eye. He's not finding any value. Great pulse bomb from Kevster again. Finding the target he needed to. And this is absolute brutality. You can see him tearing through the opposition. 3 kills, I think, in the end for Kevster. Wonderful work. A great team fight win here for the Gladiators. Not over just yet though. As you look at the Toronto Defiant's ult economy, they have a lot to work with.
They do. The EMP is important, but the Gladiators are just turning up the tempo again. And Agilities goes down so early on. Nevix with the shield not quite there to be able to defend him. And Kevster is just keeping the pressure applied. 90% and Mirror's at 60% of his EMP. They might have an EMP to be able to counter the Toronto Defiant once we get later on into this engagement. And now Logix moves over to the Reaper.
Yeah, moving over to the Reaper. It's a little bit more sustainable, less useless when it's hacked up, but he getting forced out there by Kevster. Winning that. No more EMP, despite Grim's already fallen. What a crucial 1v1 to win. The EMP must already have to try and turn this for the Gladiators. They have all the answers. The sound barrier comes out, the tracking from Kevster. It's more than enough, and that is going to be round number 2 going away of the Gladiators. A lot of this is going to be based off of this fire duel. As you can see, Mirror's prioritizing the ground targets. And you can chunk down any of them. Kevster, Widowmaker, which is interesting. They don't seem to be aware of this at all. The off angle being taken, but the heals come through. No headshots to be found here. Zeke needs to be careful though. He is doing just that.
Rocket to the face.
Yeah, the stray rockets are finding their targets. Toronto going for a bit of a dive attempt here as they're trying to move through. Mirror will fall. They can either resurrect. Looks like they will be able to do that. They have gained early control of the point. The Logix will fall. An opportunity, maybe, with the result to OG. Definitely the Gladiators going to be looking to recontest this now. Pressure blast, not just off the point momentarily. No one going off the edge. See them just trying to fight positioning here. He does not want to poke his head up because again, he has to steal them out with him.
He's going to try and take up direct 1v1 against Mirror. Mirror was so greedy in the previous fight, trying to kill Cruz over and over again. And instead, Zik just took it.
But he did manage to break down Cruz in the end. Still, agility will defend the point as a whole hog. Decides to let it go, and there you go, OG falls. Still in control of the point. The Toronto Defiant not willing to give this up that easily.
Very difficult for them to be able to kill agilities here. Mirror can't do enough consistent damage because Zik is controlling the air around the point, and Kevster can't get angles. They have no Sombra. The Bionades are attempting to be threaded through, but this one only catches Cruz.
With the fade away, the damage boost of the rocket. He goes down, and I don't think anybody's going to be able to resurrect that because it was too far behind enemy lines. An opportunity now for the Gladiators. We'll see if they can take it. The hook comes through space. Not going to be D-Mech. The barrage leaning into it. That's more than enough damage to get the job done. Clean here. The Gladiators are able to win out of this team fight.
That was a great opening for the Gladiators, but it all relied on them winning the Pharaoh 1v1. The big difference between these two compositions is that with Logics and Agilities, the Toronto Defiant can take space without relying on their Pharaoh. But because the Gladiators are running a Winston and a Tifa that have to be a bit afraid of Agilities on the Hog, they need to win the Pharaoh 1v1 in order to take any space. They do it though again. Mira wins the 1v1 against Zik. He gets rezzed, but that's got to give a bit of a confidence boost, and the fact that the res is out is a huge advantage for this team.
I'm trying to win this one overwhelmingly though. And Anubis to play that. Ziggy had to hit a rocket or two, and he's found this Jazz as his target. With Mash almost instantly. Space Team X, and he's the one next. And this is almost singular team fight territory. The Toronto Defiant with overwhelming brute force push their way onto the point. They find the opening picks. Not over just yet though. The Resurrect didn't come out. Space will be back into this fight. OG trying to turn over the Primal Rage, but that's now faded to the barrage. Just to peel them away. Another D-Mech here on the Space, but he does get the self-destruct off. Able to just get this foothold on the point, and this looks like it could be it. It is. The Toronto Defiant taking map number 1. Gladiators look like they're pitching up. Not really that much here.
This is just a best competition. Shaz goes down at the beginning though. Agility's already making his presence felt on the map, and the Gladiators are going to go all the way behind. But they still need to be able to sync up with Shaz later on in the engagement. So as Shaz gets closer, you can see the Logics is just hunting him down.
They've done here. I mean, do they realise they still have to get point A here? They're just very split. And yet, Shaz is just caught out of position.
They're attempting to reconnect with Shaz. Shaz has got his fade, so he can get back to the rest of the team once his team fight begins. But as soon as they see him going for it, look, the fade is forced out. Now the timing of the engagement is perfectly with red. Zip does get hacked, but Bigus goes down immediately, and they've had to sacrifice all of their vision just to reconnect with Shaz. That is a whole minute burnt off the clock there, for no good reason.
This is just brutal for the Gladiators. Already a minute and 20 seconds shaved off the clock because of Agilities' individual plays, getting Shaz out of that fight. Round 2 though now for Gladiators, a clean start. Engaging this, but it's the early EMP, and that spells an early defeat right away. Birdwing will trade it out, but Cruz should be able to get that res off.
And the Defiant is sitting pretty on, like, there's potential here for a Nano Barrage to come through as well, that the Gladiators don't really have many tools to be able to deal with. Now, right now, Agilities, he needs to die, but the Nano is there.
Get the heal off as well, the heal, the Nano, everything comes through to try and help him out. He from the Gladiators. Run onto a couple of targets here, an opportunity for them to try and turn this one, but it seems like Gladiators are in control once again. There's only a couple of targets remain. Birdwing leading up. A nice take from the Gladiator.
Logic so close to his own, and really the big difference maker for me in that fight was that Zip did not get an opportunity to use his barrage at any point, so he wasn't able to make that play. Now the Gladiators are in control of the tempo, with Death Blossom is perfect to be able to peel for that barrage.
Oh my goodness, the Death Blossom to counter the barrage. You don't see that every day.
No, you don't.
The Gladiators are probably going to be quite pleased with that as well. OG just about getting hacked at the tail end of the Primal Rage, and another team fight win. 3 minutes, did not want to get that cart held up at the early sections here of Hollywood, but
Gladiators need to play fast again here, Brent. They need to try and use Kev's EMP before Logics can use his. A hack onto Zik is fantastic, but they need to turn up the tempo. They have the high ground, find a good opportunity to engage and go before the Defiant can really set up. They're just trying to push the payload forward, but Agilities is blocking it.
EMP comes through. Logics is caught with that EMP, and that's going to be the Toronto Defiant. Finding the picks actually on the back of that. Logics now just using it at the tail end of the fight to try and turn this one. It is quite scrappy, they're all over the place currently. But yeah, it seems like Toronto have a decent chance, a decent foothold at least to just hold on to this one. Still needs to go for any of these hooks. Okay, just target. It is scrappy, Jock.
Well, also the Gladiators used their best tool there, and they had momentum on their side that they let trickle away. So this is now the Defiant in pretty thorough control. Yes, they're not going to be able to control high speed, but unless the Gladiators can get massive value out of the south barrier, Agilities gets nanoed and saved again.
Yeah. Well, the sleep down was missed there for Karim, and he could not connect it onto Birdering with the Death Blossom. 2 kills early on. Even trades though, and the rest comes out to Karim here. Could be an opportunity for him to turn this. By unable to connect onto him, but hacked up in the corner. They have to deal for Karim. He's one of their major win conditions. The longer he stays alive, the better it will be. But Space with the baby blaster just pulling out the gap. Why not? Going for it, running up on man, but you can see the Gladiators now have an opportunity to take this fight into their own hands here. It's hard to see who's really in control of this team fight, but EMP now committed by Kevster, but not getting the pickoffs they need off the back of it. In fact, Agility's back in the fight now with his own plays. The Roadhog hooks coming through. It does take out Kevster. OG getting active out of his primal wave, completely negates it, but Agility's bashes into the corner means that he won't be able to play this much longer.
So scrappy from both of these teams here, but basically because the Gladiators refuse to lose, they are throwing ults and throwing bodies into this fight in just sheer determination. EMP comes out from Logic, that catches a few players, but no follow-up available with Zik already dead.
They have the positioning for it. The tanks are coming in for a bit of a second attempt at things, but Agility's going down. Shouldn't put an end to all of this. Pulse Bomb actually just stopped anyone from trying to contest this point. You can see the support line of the Toronto Defiant already getting out of there. We don't want to be facing them whatsoever. Kevster just having to try and build up his EMP as he's leading the charge for the rest of his team.
Get into position.
Time to raise my APM.
See if they can continue. This is something that they obviously need to draw back and push the payload forwards, and it was something that really stalled them out when they get to point B. They have a minute and a half on the clock. Birdring going back over to the weak bit yet. Kevster with an EMP available. Preemptively popping the Valkyrie and looking to move forward. See what a centerpiece Agilities is in this comp. He gets Nano, the reaction Nano coming out from here.
To be afforded a little bit more aggressive positioning when he knows that Anubis is available. Forces the Gladiators back, but nice early picks, nice sleep into the hook.
I mean, I think the issue is that whenever they're committing onto Agilities, the Nano Boost always seems to be available. Karim is building that up really quickly, and the Gladiators, I think, aren't maybe keeping track of it, and so whenever they invest the EMP, the hacks, to be able to kill it, he's just there, able to be safe. Again, they're healed up with the whole run available. There's just so many tools to keep this guy alive, and OG, he's the one that falls instead.
Okay. Concussion blast straight away into Dorado. Trying to turn this fight around. Enemy line gets hacked up and taken out. You've lost your centerpiece of the composition here. A bit of an overextension means that the Gladiators, with the superior spawn point, will be able to move into this fight now. A bit of an advantage. I don't think that hack was intended. Oh, perhaps it was invisible, so I didn't quite see it.
I mean, there's just so many tools for both teams. The Gladiators are going to get some free push because the Toronto Defiant want to fight with the choke point instead. But they have that Nano available. So it comes down to whether Logics can get a nice EMP. You can see him up top. Kevster around the back, deep into enemy lines, but Logics is up top as well. Both teams attempted it. That didn't catch the power, but it did catch both tanks.
Wow, target! Look at that! OG to control! Look at him going towards forward. The primal rage catching both the support. What a play, but then he leaves it for the self-destruct. What a turn of events, and it still does not matter. The space was created. A defensive wrecking ball. Gladiators are just teaming swiftly, as you can see OG just holding down the flank. This is a very wide angle that the Gladiators are trying to occupy. Gonna let the Toronto Defiant get through the choke point. Just searching for a shot or two. Birdring just leave it right now to check and see if there's any Sombra nearby, and also seeing if he can get a head or two as well. Click.
This is a lot of poke damage. Zenyatta damage boosted Birdring on Ash, the Tracer, but it relies on OG making space for the rest of his team. If the Defiant take presence over the point, they'll just get pushed back into a corner, the Gladiators and lose. It is appealing pretty effectively here. They're backing off a Birdring. Fade away headshot straight away. The damage boost slammed on top. This bad boy fits so many headshots in it, and Gladiators just turning it around. Right in the blink of an eye. Perfectly just accepting, I mean, just cleaning up at the end here as well. But just wonderful play as well from the Gladiators when it comes to their positioning. Just accepting the aggression from Toronto. Molding into it, and then just answering back.
My ultimate is charged.
Yeah, totally. Chaz just peeled backwards towards the cafe, as did Birdring. The heals were all there, and OG and Space are the ones that have to disrupt the Toronto Defiant and provide opportunities for Birdring to hit those shots. They did a great job healing this time. Let's see if they can do it again. But wow, there's multiple ultimates available.
Gladiators holding on and able to find the openings they needed, the ultimates they had available, and I mean, just like that, so much being built up already. The Gladiators now working with so much the mines from OG, able to just stop any sort of footstep going through this now. Anubis may be able to clear it with his Reaver. Going to be looking for the early mines here. Having to get a kill straight away, rolling in OG so clean.
Objecting.
That's beautiful stuff. The aggression there in the mines. I know Agility thought he could tank it. He thought he would be able to be safe. He's got a 50% damage reduction, plus some healing, plus he's got his supports there as well. But the Gladiators had follow-up after the minefield to do this as well. And so far, I'm loving how the Gladiators are playing this. It comes down to Birdring and Kevster being very talented at the heroes they're playing as well. But the positioning and the way they're just accepting this aggression, I love that phrase you use, Brent, because that's exactly what they're doing. As the Defiant push in, they back off and they just accept it. They give up the space and they collapse onto them afterwards.
It's something you see from a lot of top teams, the confidence to know that they can retake the fight when it's more favorable for them once the cooldown.
Time to raise my APM.
Agilities so much relies on this guy to hit his hooks. So much. He needs to get these early pickoffs for his team. It's so difficult to do. Positioning Gladiators the aggression now. Some a bit of a set play trying to make it happen, but look at this. The back line is really in a bit of trouble here. Big Goose taken down as well. No resurrect for the next fight. The Defiant in a very, very good position now.
The Defiant found a really good spot there where they could push Jazz and Birdring into a little corner. And Logix and Zik were right there. The coordination perfect between the Defiant DPS line. The Defiant want to control this high ground. They don't really have a composition that is great at sitting up top. Agilities obviously has to wait for the elevators. They've only really got Nevix and Zik who would normally play up there. Oh, and Career falls! What an enormous pick from Kevster! He's just in the backlines causing chaos!
Whatever reason, no resurrect available. That's what was off cooldown or not, but
I think they just weren't there with him. I mean, Cruz was pushing forward with Zik, trying to take territory. Nobody was playing with Karib. They just assumed that he was safe.
Activated.
Stopping for a short while. Pokémon comes up as well, trying to take him out, and that was the Anubis that played onto Zik. He almost got obliterated, destroyed the raw damage. The mines now come through into the pile driver. No targets to be found as Lion playing is quite patient. Still, Logix will be meeting his end as he just walks into the mines, and the post bomb from Kevster will do the dirty work. Taking out the necessary targets, giving Toronto Defiant direct one-way shot to the respawn room, and you can see Gladiators now in a very comfortable position, and it feels like this entire map they have been completely comfortable.
Yeah, they've been very much in control, and they have control of the high ground now as well, which is so important. It just gives Shaz a safe place to sling his ults from. And Zik, even though he's on Pharah, he's not actually going to be that far above everybody else because they're on top of enormous buildings. The skybox, it's not that much higher than the buildings are themselves, so the Gladiators are in perfect position. Birdring and Shaz should be able to apply a lot of pressure. That bomb, though,
the back line doesn't get what they were looking for. Now with 30 seconds left, Toronto Defiant have a nice holding position, a defensive position here onto the high ground as they're spamming it with the rocket. What can the Gladiators do here, Josh?
Gladiator's going to come out and repossess the stick. That's so nice on the Space immediate teammate. And Space is the person that needed to make the space for everybody else.
Still fighting for pickoffs though. Kevster and Birdring hurting them massively for this one. He's got to try and turn it. He has to hit it. Here's the barrage coming against the field. Space was there, ready and waiting. The defense matrix able to keep it healed up and healthy. The Toronto Defiant collapsing, crumbling. No one will stand up to the might of the Gladiators as they will be walking away with map number 2 in this series. Purpose of Shaz on this Zen, is that just purely for the Discord orb to try and burn down Agilities when he gets through the choke point?
Well, I think also it provides a lot of damage from a high ground position because they know Agilities is never going to be playing that Winston. He can just sit up there forever. I
think that you wouldn't really run the Zen against Diana, the Bionate kind of counters center. Much more consistent predictions, but Gladiators reading the competition.
Time to raise my APM.
Shaz is also positioned very far forward. I thought Shaz would be positioned at the back. Instead, it's Berger in the back. Coach going to escape. Luz has already fallen. A big boost has been hacked. Shaz is already going down. Both supports here annihilated from the Gladiators. That back line, it's in pieces.
Absolutely destroyed. Only a couple of players remaining out for the Gladiators to try and clean this one up. But OG rolling through, did manage to take out Logics. Logics going to miss here in the end, but Kevin goes down regardless. Should be just
All systems checked out.
Toronto Defiant. Don't think anybody's going to be
Now
this
show
one.
them.
They don't really have the bodies for it. A nice take here from the Toronto Defiant, recognizing that dive, recognizing the vulnerabilities.
I mean, you don't expect the Defiant to be able to set up an effective dive, but Nevix found a flag, and Logix was there in position as well. So that little combo of Nevix flying in and Logix already there was pretty great. And now Zik, oh, look at that.
I love this. I love the down to the fire here, just trying to lead it in because you just don't need that much damage to get maximum work done. One direct block is more than that usually. You'll see now, you can see him just using the pillar to try and avoid a lot of this damage. Kevster has to try and turn this one around. Pulse bomb came through, but a Resurrect is available and ready and waiting in there. Agilities though, just managed to get that kill in space in the end. The point is still contesting with a couple of bodies. Transcendence going to be used. But the Gladiators just keep them back in this fight for a moment longer, but the mind is going to make it very, very difficult for the Toronto Defiant to try and work their magic here. Agilities goes down. You've lost your Roadhog. Pretty much your entire push attempt is going to be curtains off the back of that.
How do they win a big team fight? Probably on the back of EMP and then Zik going crazy and just getting a bunch of kills. Or Agilities perhaps just getting kill after kill after kill. But they don't have a big combo or some kind of natural synergy where they can feel together and get some great focus fights.
EMP into the Nano Barrage might be it. Now you can see Unleashed. Look at that! Damage boost and the Discord all places the psych, and he is gone. He's down and out. Almost a teammate here onto space. Logix is trying to find it. The hack's not quite there. Desperately hunting for a target, but the Gladiators are more than happy to stay in control of this one.
So that Nano Boost is going to be up in no time whatsoever. Logix, on the other hand, is going to be a bit slower to build up to EMP. And with 3 minutes available, we're talking like 2 more EMPs, really. So 2 more big opportunities, unless the Gladiators make enormous mistakes.
Back line. Kevster slept up. Damage boost. From that right click there, Agility is able to take him out pretty easily. Nice book as well, connecting close just when he needed it, but this fight is going on a bit too long. Toronto can't afford to really be taking this one. They need another pick off to try and make an attempt, and they recognize that. He's backing off. Shaz goes down though, but traded out for Karim as Kevster flying too far.
Can Karim be res? If he's possible? Oh no, Zik was fallen anyway, so this res on Karim, it doesn't even really matter. The Defiant are just going to get shoved down anyway. Nevix weak, possible teammate down here, and this stagger's going to be kind of brutal. She goes even deeper. Space and OG just picking up Agilities and Cruz. A lot of ults here available again, but Logic is close to that EMP.
Dorado comes through. Cannot play him. Try and prioritize the backline. OG. That plan will race to escape. Realize by the just go forward at the tail end of this, but it needs to be a cleaner fight than that. After struggling from space just to stall them out, and they're trying to work their way through this choke point. They're dealing with all sorts of damage going on the backline. Kevster still the point, almost in their favor. The Toronto Defiant finding opportunities, but Kevster with the pulse bomb, finding it again. Another kill going his way, and the team with the respawns off the back of it, just happily sending it all the way home. But it feels like what the Gladiators have been running with instant dive competition, it seems a lot more flexible and a lot more smart.
It definitely is more flexible, but they still have to give ground to the Defiant when they push in. And that's how the Defiant have managed to get those 2 ticks, is by just pushing Agilities onto the point. And the Gladiators team comp wants to do damage. It doesn't necessarily want to go close quarters combat against Agilities. So that's the advantage of putting OG now onto the Roadhog as well. Yes, it reduces some of your ability to be flexible, but there's only 1 fight left here, and it's about who's on the point.
Bob is going to be sent down now for Berlin. That's the point in space, G-Connect. ults online. You can see Zekus is desperately hunting for a rocket, but it's about to burn. It's very difficult to try and remove that one. They have to find some more pickoffs. The hack again comes through space for the D-Mech. The Breeder just keep him alive here. Now it is going to be the road battle of the Hogs in the back line, finding the pickoff. The Transcendence comes through, but a little bit too late now. The Discord Orb supports him and catches the finds it, pushing them off the point.
And the Gladiators are going to run this Sombra Reaper rush kind of composition that we've seen them run in the past a couple of times before so far in this series. It's been reasonably effective. Logic for the Widowmaker would be a huge dampener, but instead it's Zig with the damage boosted rocket straight onto Birdring.
How does he get that as well? Birdring has so many answers to try and avoid some of that damage, but that is the danger, right? Damage boosted rockets for the choke point. Gladiators, they needed to try and break through that, and now Birdring's made the switch. Widowmaker v Widowmaker. Decided his team does not need him. They guided straight off the high ground here. Gladiators trying to take the seat, and they catch the rib. Could be this Widowmaker 1v1 happening in their favor. Once he gets the gun down, Cruz doesn't have the Resurrect available, is going to be able to get it off as well, so...
Logix is going to be able to come back into this fight as well. They found the pick on him after he had won the Widowmaker 1v1. But now as things start to stabilize once again, Ultimate's getting up to the Defiant. The Gladiators have got to find a pick.
So much consistent comes in here from Logix, but he's going down again here. Logix now has to try and take things into his own hands. The Falcon Mercy! Cruz just takes it against Birdring. Nothing more annoying than that. Still, Logic's just taking these off. Fine Goose finds Big Goose. Comes through. OG taking so much damage. Logic's now finding so much work for his team. Especially turnable scenario now. He's Defiant finding more players. The spawners are coming back into this. The heals need to come through. Someone needs to contest this point up though. They've almost got it. They do just that. 96% and counting. Still staying on the point. Agility's back into it now with the Roadhog. Healing himself up. They're trying to move them away, but it's still so winnable. Zeke has to hit a rocket or two, but hand up with a sitting duck on the ground. The Gladiators are happily going to be able to just munch them all up. Turning this fight for them, but maybe not. The Gladiators with so many opportunities now as the spawners come through. Look at the post bomb. Logic's 3 kills, but unfortunately not enough to turn the fight for his team's favor.
I mean, Logix was just absurd in that entire defense, the headshots he was hitting, and then when he respawned on the Tracer, to be able to find 2 picks in the backline, plus a fadeaway pulse bomb onto Big Goose. The rest of his team couldn't really put anything together in the situation. Now the Gladiators are rolling forward, looking to capitalize on the momentum.
So brutal to try and turn this one around now, but the Gladiators, they've got so many pickoffs. It's almost an inevitability. Self-destruct comes through as well. The spawners now coming through the Toronto Defiant. The Gladiators so close to winning this one, 85% and counting. But the red onto agilities might turn this one around now. They've got their roadhogs back. The hook is not going to be hitting here.
And then after you finally kill Agilities, oh, he gets resurrected again. And that was Cruz coming off the respawn too, so it's they did the hard work of pulling the Mercy early on, but they just couldn't stop the race coming through afterwards. It is so difficult to play a solo match with and against the Roadhog. It just changes the dynamic.
600 out the screen. Resurrect off with a big EMP is going to be helping them out now. A lot of the damage being put in, but at the end of the day, the Anubis does not care about your EMP. Yes, he can't use the hook. Yes, he can't use the breeder, but agility damage from the gun is still going to be hurting a tremendous amount now. Overlapping the support ult, but agility's catching him out of the coalescence. Still, the Gladiators finding so many picks. Agility's fall with a last-minute sleep, a last-ditch effort to try and turn things for his team. Players falling just short of the mark now. The Gladiators are happily just leaving them up, battering them away. OG controlling the space elegantly, finding opportunities to set his team up for success again and again and again. Birdering with the Death Blossom on top will definitely seal the deal. And that is going to be map number 3 going away here. Trying to win out this fire 1v1. Mirror match almost across the board. Exception obviously of this 4-man attack line. So not really a mirror match at all. Actually the composition quite drastically different, but at least the DPS are going to be matching up. And see, currently Agility's just trying to work an off angle. So he can get a pick or two while his team are just trying to pop it back up to his core. The hook comes through. heal is instantly there, and it's going to be equal trades now. DVA players flashing up above. Logic's finding 2 minutes. Gets the and Birdman going. Not bad at all.
One res, 2 picks.
It's going to be hard to try and play the game to try and get another player up, but out of fault, you can see the order hooks coming through. It's really just connecting onto the necessary targets, setting his team up for success here. Logic's player, Burden, really that's one of the fighters of the blue games, really trying to stack up against Logic when he's feeling himself like this. Good happen, you never know. Shout out to our producers.
Just in quick succession, both of these Widowmaker players have put up absurd numbers over the course of the season. Logic's throughout the entirety, but Birdring has really picked up towards the end. We know him as a big game player. Obviously not feeling at his best right now, but Birdring's best is unbelievably good.
Yeah. Really just a contention for potential best in the world in some roles we play. It's just that good. Has really come alive actually quite a lot when he's been playing on the Canadian squad. It's a side of Birdring, or at least an old side.
An old side of Birdring, yeah, that's right. It's the kind of performances we expected from him when he came into the Overwatch. Agilities is just such a indomitable presence on this payload. He's very difficult to shift off, and there's no EMP available here to get him off. There's no nano boost, the biotic nade available to get him off. So he can't be hacked, he can't be bionaded. Agilities is just going to be able to push this payload unless the Gladiators for the space will be created. Right out advantage comes through, but he's not able to get the kill. What are being ate up there by Gladiators there. Trying to hold on to what little they've got. And now with the first one, great stick. Find the target necessary. Cruz goes down as well, which means that there's going to be no resurrection. Currently just on the point, gets the breather off. Just going to be stalling a bit of time here. Does get Big Goose. I mean, he's still alive. He's just being a nuisance here in the small little corridors. And that's the key word, right? It's just nuisance. Wow, what a great one clip from Kevster. Logic's not giving him the respect he deserves. Resurrect comes out. That means one isn't available for Zik if he ends up getting headshot by Birdring as well.
Get through this.
So much pressure, so much on the line. Gladiators getting that foothold, putting him forward. Still need to be careful with this Kevster. Ready and waiting. Look at what's used to it. Kevster's in danger. 30 health, yeah, I thought he was going to go for the as well. He's deciding to save it instead. He doesn't have recoil still, but goes for the Torture anyway and finds it. Logic's having a night. Absolute mare currently. The res does come off, but apparently just being bullied, unable to take any sort of positioning, any sort of long sight line. Very difficult for them to get in here.
And I think this is the absolute key to the Gladiator's success. They need to bully the backline. They can't really do anything to Agilities. They just have to stop him carrying the payload. But the rest of the team is vulnerable. Kevster again above Logix. Logix is just sat on the low ground trying to counter this Tracer player. Kevster, by the way, to everybody at home who might not be aware, still playing with about 1 million ping because he's in Europe right now. So he's performing out of his mind and has been all season long.
Especially during these playoff years. And there you go. Birdring finding 2. Nicely done. Quick little snap of the wrist, and you can see the headshots flowing, flooding through. That was quite a headshot, but I'll let you off the SMG spray down, you know. Logic's now forced off the Widowmaker. Can't hold it, can't contest. Another headshot from Birdring.
That's so good as well. Birdring now has no enemy Widowmaker to have to worry about, so he can take much more aggressive angles. And he instantly delivers on that aggressive angle by killing Zik. Forces out the Resurrect, slows down the Toronto Defiant. Kevster now is not so much the star player that is going to be harassing the backline. Now it's on Birdring. The responsibilities have shifted slightly. Birdring is now the one that has no pressure on him.
Rotations around him, and they slip out of position here. Opportunity for them if they can try and connect onto it, but the Toronto Defiant. Look at this. Zik with the help of his team. Rockets connecting beautifully, gliding through the air. And a couple of players willing to stand up to them now as it is going to roll in.
So Zik, I think he had a nano boost on him at the same time as well. That nano far up play is just so crucial for the Defiant. For Zik to be able to take space and not be scared of getting headshot.
And I will say as well, that middle section of Dorado is pretty brutal to be playing as a Farah player. It's so wide and so open, you're at really the mercy of a lot of its damage, but now you get into this final section, you can start playing the fire a little bit more aggressively. You can start working your way into the high ground a little bit.
This final segment, though, is still pretty difficult because you've got a roof above your head. So, I don't know. This is where I was wondering when I was watching Houston use this composition that maybe hydration should have swapped off. I'm asking the same question here again. The changes to Farah, though, mean that you have to hit the ground occasionally now. She has been patched recently so that she can't stay in the air for long.
Ults coming up, and Kevster goes down. That's a damage boost of Rocket. That's more than enough damage to take him out. Also into the back line as he tries to get turned. Birdwing's still finding his angles. This is the angle I was talking about with the fire. He can just dodge and juke away from the line of sight, and Anubis comes through. Birdwing has to try and hit these shots, but it's not enough. Look at Sick. Goal for us. The Grecian close quarters, a dangerous position, but finding the work is done anyway. Space D-Mech not in this fight. Agility's moving toward the hole, clearing a path for his team. The road to success, potentially the road to continuation of this series. Finally going to be capping it up. All 3 checkpoints going to be theirs. Really well. They can drag this one out. Hell of a storyline. Keep coming through. Okay, this is just to get your support, basically dodging the line of sight. Yeah, so they can avoid the line of sight, avoid the early damage when they're going out the gates. Moved over now to the Widowmaker, so going to be trying to take and opt into this Widowmaker 1v1. Now, Logic's been, generally speaking, getting the better of a lot of this Widowmaker 1v1, but Birdwing's no slouch either.
A slow approach to Gladiators. It's been very principled with how they set up on the payload. They don't want to give away an open.
A lot of respect being given here.
Jump shot now from Birdwing. Hunting for the angle. He does spot Logix, but Logix backs away. It is just a waiting game because look, Gladiators are playing again. Deep competition, trying to buy their time for an opening, maybe a pick. A lot of this could be resting on Birdwing's shoulders.
At the same time, though, Glenn, even if Birdwing gets a pick, it's likely to be red. That's going to slow things down once again. It's the Defiant final objective. Sick, though, and the rear both get free. Abilities want to pick up the pick. This should show right? I'm not even sure they need the res, honestly, because Zig's going to be back in the fight. I gotta say, Shaz on the offense isn't finding these angles to be able to get damage or Discord orbs out, particularly. He hasn't been able to have impact. They would love, I think, to have an Ana right now to be able to bionate agilities and just make him a bit more scared, push him back a little bit to take that space from him. Instead, Gladiators really rely on this one big push.
Oh, so much damage! Damage boost and the Discord orb. He plays the Pepstone too! You gotta be kidding me! This guy, just as we were talking, just as you were saying, you know, what have they got to deal with agilities? No bionate to stop him, and nothing like that.
Incredible.
Ults are coming online. You see they've got the Infosight, so the vision is available for them with Logis having walls. This is going to be buying them a lot of time. Just leaving something away from the rest of his team.
I'm ready to initiate
the opportunity to use it is going to be pretty slim. Logic's leaving a head on the Kevster on the flank, and that was Kevster probably trying to push Logic's out of position.
That's pretty crucial as well, actually, because I think they're going for the same kind of thing again. This got all bunch of agilities, you can see it's placed at the moment, and then Kevster's got his pulse bomb up. So that combo, that could be crucial for the Gladiators to be able to constantly apply more pressure and push back agilities. He's got to be a little bit scared of that, and you've got to give respect as well to Birdwing. As he's got the space there to deny it. He comes through, doesn't quite deny the reds, but punishes the most for it.
That's so smart. That's so smart. She's using the self-destruct. They knew that the rest was going to come out, but it's the only way they won that fight. Space answers immediately with the self-destruct, denies it completely. You either stick it or you don't, because at the end of the day, it's still my God. Here I am talking about the Mercy Resurrects when he's just popping off like this on high ping. Nevertheless, as well.
How does he do this?
Yeah, what flipping fools. I mean, it's just unbelievable. This kind of performance is what you need to see in the playoffs coming out from these teams. It's what we wanted to see all season long from the Gladiators. We're finally getting it now just when it matters most. The attempt now on the front of the fight moving here. This little still placed now on the seat with that nano boost. He's going to get demolished. It's so smart of a Shaz. Applied Discord, uses Nano, or uses the Transcendent, still being turned though. Those are coming out now, so we're back in this fight. Does feel like the Gladiators have an opportunity to try and win this one out, but Cruz pulls out the blaster and takes out Murdering from behind. I still don't think they're going to be able to take this one. The players are straggling in at this point. The barrage comes through.
46 seconds left, and even though the Gladiators have been very impressive on their attack, it's been slow, Brent. It has been very slow.
Toronto going to be looking for this last team fight to win it big.
Do they go for the pulse bomb again?
Right here.
Do they go for the pulse bomb here, Brent? The Discord or pulse bomb play onto agility, that could be huge.
There, OG has the time, working his way now. He's going to pop it off just to see if he can survive into this fight. Meanwhile, a Widowmaker 1v1 taking place between these two players. The shot's missing. Logixo gets the big health pack. He has the health pack. It's kicking off now to get precise. Meanwhile, the team fight kicks off and Cruz meeting his mate, meeting him into cleaving through the enemy team here. As this was going on further, ended up winning that Widowmaker 1v1, and the overtime will start to burn. The Gladiators have an opportunity, and it is going to be theirs, as Birdering cleans up once more. 4 kills in total for him. The savior and his team's need. Oh my god, what a performance.
You would not be able to tell that this guy is ill whatsoever. Logix gets the better end of him there, with the aid of Cruz. But at the same time, Birdring just stepped up exactly when it mattered. He was able to get the 1v1 kill over Logix, which is enormous, right? Because if Logix is just left alive in your backlines, changes the entire tide of that fight. And then he gets all of the cleanup kills necessary for his team to keep this time bank going into point C. It's still long though, Brett. 55 seconds left. The Defiant with the high ground control, with the ults to play with.
Just leaving the side here. Self-destruct from space again, leaving it in, seeing if they can break any space and try and capitalize on, dive in. As will be the one to go down though. I don't think that is going to be getting res anytime soon. Burden forward as well. 30 seconds remaining. Gladiators should just be backing off here. Be resetting. Brutal one.
That's incredibly rough.
No.
Big Goose as well.
He's going to be able to touch this. I was convinced that nobody was going to be there, but 2 seconds remaining. Double dashing in. He's going to be able to get that overtime going. Transcendence from Shaz to lead it in. But the positioning is awful from the Gladiators. And the barrage from Zeke from behind. Shaz goes down pretty early on. It's going to be all on third ring to try and turn this one around, but he goes down to the Fire Native Peru. So many picks going their way. The Toronto Defiant inches away from victory with the Primal Rage, but he is melted in an instant. And this series, Josh, will be going the distance. We'll see what they can do now as the players for the teams are rolling out. At 5, Lijiang Tower all come down to this. Immediately you can see these teams matching each other toe to toe. OC in the advantage early on, playing for first pick, going down. No more attacks, no more building of that EMP. Significant disadvantage here for Toronto Defiant early on, not finding the opening they were looking for still. Lost any players, have built up pretty good coalescence from both sides here. Shaz using this one here. Still, yeah, coalescence break out once more, but it seems like the Gladiators are in control.
Definitely. The hacks coming out from Kevstar are perfect. Hack onto Nevix to be able to demech him. A hack onto Cruz to be able to find that kill as well. And even though Karib invests his coalescence, it's responded immediately by Shad. That was almost a textbook way of being able to play this sort of window. As the EMP comes out to establish dominant control over Lijiang Tower. At least they're beginning here on that market for the Gladiators. They're going to start this capture point rolling upwards.
That's a team fight for them. Yeah. Looking at the ultimates of Gladiators now, they have plenty to work with. Nice hack. Murdering into the back of it, gets hacked up, cancelled out of it, and now turned around. Finding these pickoffs for the rest of their team. A great opening here. Defiant capitalizing immediately, taking position onto the point. They're going to flip it over in their favor. And late deception comes out now to the Gladiators. Death box from Logic Sapphire to leave them in, but it's going to be a better one from the Gladiators. Nice health point advantage, leading it in with the coalescence. The self-destruct might be the difference maker, but the players time. Expertly round the corner, Dorado taking out of the way from Dexter now, utilizing the EMP, unleashing it onto the battlefield. Numlock will be the first casualty from that. It's going to be even trades across the board. Anyone's game still. The position advantage all goes to Toronto. They're still in control at this point, and they don't seem to be any closer to being dethroned away from it.
That's so unfortunate that the Gladiators weren't able to capitalize on the EMP. Logic's just stayed in position the entire time. He isn't affected by being hacked, but what is that? Big use with the spam kills for so no heals available for the Defiant. This should be an easy win for the Gladiators.
Egregious mistake because it's cost them big time. You lost your Moira players. There'll be a lack of heals coming through. You're not building the coalescence. Bit nasty from them, but will mean the Gladiators get their time in the sun as they're going to flip this point back over now. 50% counting, so even between these two teams, and it is the Gladiators with that big ultimate advantage.
Yeah, the Gladiators are 50% ahead of their coalescence as well. Mr. Riv went down in that fight. And in the EMP too, they could go for an aggressive play. That's exactly what they go for.
Yeah, the EMP comes out, Numlock can't do anything. Can't even stand up, but the shield's going to evaporate. Coalescence just to seal the deal here. Spraying them down. Aggressive forward approach here, but it can't get too aggressive, can't get too out of position.
Yeah, 6 online, but no great response from the Gladiators here as well. They might just invest a couple of ults to try and forward make Defiant as possible. But it's EMP should be the flank from over. He is close to that headquarter. They got shut down last time, but he might be able to make bandage again here.
Samar is a little bit late. Preparation mode. Hacked up. Who's on the side of the map? What a play from Cruz. Finding it off to OG, and now Logic still in the fight. Only a couple of players remaining. Trying to turn this one around, but it is the Defiant who have complete and utter dominance, a great grasp on this point as they reflip it.
Those ults were necessary to draw out the ults from the Toronto Defiant though as well. So I don't hate that move. I just wish that Kempster had been able to generate more of his EMP. They would love to have it right available now, but he's already got it. He just takes the front line, takes a little bit of defense matrix from space, and he's built it up.
Drawn through. Southwestern preemptively comes through as well. Nevis finds one, but the Gladiators. 3 early picks means that this might just be it. A couple of players able to just stall out this point as the overtime will start to burn, but can anybody else touch this one? It doesn't look like that will be the case.
Gladiators are running something totally different. Just the Summer Reaper, but this time with a ball.
Lucio Zen. With Lucio Zen for the speed boost and the Discord orb. What a wacky composition from the Gladiators here. You see how this works out. Because look, they're just going to have this sphere of death that's currently being occupied by the Toronto Defiant. Anyone who walks within their sort of range is probably going to be beating their makers. Rolling through, OG in a bit of trouble here. Battered up, but all this damage and no kills means that the River's a very happy man. Already 60% to the coalescence. Can he get any further?
Numlock shield goes down. Look at Numlock shield, it just gets shredded. That's Shaz in the backline as well, just putting out so much damage there, but so is it.
And experimental confidence quite pay off.
Time to raise my EPM.
Ziggler's go down on the third ring, but ultimately this point forward to Toronto will not change hands too often.
I change hands once the EMP gets online. There really isn't that much of an answer from the Toronto Defiant. Cruz is still a long way away from his sound barrier, which would be a good counter. Look at OG just in the back here. He's looking to disrupt and displace them. If Zig gets his tire, that could be a great counter to the EMP. If he can get tire and dodge getting hacked, that could be perfect.
He's going to try and build it up now. Gladiators went so slow. Any target. The EMP unleashed. Gladiators looking to try and capitalize, and they've got a couple of players hacked up to do just that. 2 players going to go down, and it's the most important one, tanks. No longer really having that presence. The tire comes through anyway. They want to turn this one. They feel confident in doing so.
How did Logix get 2 kills in the middle of that team fight? How did they find an opportunity to turn it around? How are the Gladiators not in control right now? What an insane opportunity found there from the Toronto Defiant. Great shot call.
Number one put out of position, the barrier might just save him. Still, this fight continues. You can see them rolling it forward, rolling it down. The mines are stopping them in their tracks. Going down though. They're forcing from all home. You've got to be kidding me.
They weren't even sure they could field this guy at the beginning of today, but Birdring battled through the illnesses that he was feeling, warmed up straight into the game in the second map, and he's been lights out ever since.
Nevix with this grab. Gladiators need to be playing around this space. Wants to be trying to keep this. They know it's coming into the pile driver combo. Logic's in the backside though. TP to avoid it. Trying to turn it around. Space using that self-destruct, which means there could be a free grab here. Space goes down.
Logix is a monster. He did the same thing in the previous fights when he was on Symmetra, where he takes an engagement where EMP is used and they should lose. The Defiant should lose, but Logix finds 2 kills and he did the same there again. This time he couldn't quite save the team fight, but he's still got the picks. Kevin's going to have his work cut out here. He's taking way too much damage.
On a beautiful grab from Nevix. Space unable to eat it, going to get demeched in the process as well. Lost in this fight. The mines are still around the sides of the pointy. You can see they're just trying to avoid them. Far too mobile from the Gladiators. Still another pile driver into the adaptive shields, gives them enough health to try and turn this one around. Now surely the Gladiators aren't going to be capable of doing it. Surely this is where they're going to be entering this. The Defiant, 99%, the overtime side of the burn here. The Defiant desperately holding on. They need this map win, they need this round win for their tournament life to be on the line still. Nevix burning down, Kempster taking it out the fight. Soundfire coming in a little bit later though. Victus wants to turn this one for the rest of his team. You can still see the players of the Gladiators still alive here. Space kills Zeke with Kareem bounces back again onto OG. Another grab built up. Nevix waiting for the right opportunity to try and unleash it in Space being teammate. Well, that might just be the goal, but he doesn't need it. The Toronto Defiant taking the round.
I have been loving this series though, Brett, because we have gone just blow for blow until the very final round, and I feel like both of these teams are playing maybe some of their best Overwatch they've played all season long.
Playoffs is where the player gets elevated to new heights. Teams are clashing. One of them for potentially the last time this year. And one just backed out a way to leap through, and it is flashing competitions here. Both teams running miracles in the end. Trying to get a better edge, trying to win out over the others, trying to get a pick off the 2. You can see the way they're working around early coalesce. And OG out of position. Quality traded out. EMP now on the 6 members of the Defiant. Could be turnable for the Gladiators, and they do just that. Taylor that coalesce gets so much done because of that EMP. Kempster building it up just in time. Point was flipped over for the Toronto as they got the early capture. The Gladiators are going to be in control for now.
The rookie player for the Gladiators on a team full of vets, he saves them there because OG, he had pushed forwards thinking that Shaz had his coalescence up at the same time as Karim. He was expecting to be saved by that call, but it just came through too slowly. But thankfully, Kempster held up to his EMP, and now he has 40% again. But Zig has it available. Didn't use it in the previous fight. He was on the 95% but he died.
Right off for the solo EMP. He goes to the side, tries to catch it, but the sound barrier from Big Goose. It's going to connect, and he's going to keep his team still in it. Negating out the EMP. Gladiators with 2 picks. Doesn't seem like there's a Defiant that's going to be able to hold on to this one for any longer. The Primal Rage with Numlocked is not going to be able to do much other than get him out of the fight scot-free, but Gladiators still holding on now, approaching that 50% mark. A real turning point so far in this round.
This could be huge as well because Kempster has built up to another EMP. He is so fast with these. So an EMP coalescence combo would just wipe the Toronto Defiant right now. Sure, they have Caribs, but I don't think they would be able to hold up to another one of their abilities taken away.
One goes, the worst it might be. EMP unleashed, the coalescence to try and save them, but it's not going to be enough. Carib cannot keep his team alive during the EMP. It's going to be another team could use it.
Jazz saved his coalescence. You almost always see the support try and use something, whether it's EMP and Bionade or EMP and coalescence. Oh, Kevster is camping the translocator here.
Destroy that now, but
Just putting a bit of disruption. Final
cycling of ults here. Yeah, final fight territory for the Gladiators. They've got to try and turn up, and look at this! Gladiators finds the open kick, murdering, rolling through them with the Death Blossom, 2 kills! And that should do it, ladies and gentlemen. The Los Angeles Gladiators. The Defiant made it hard for them, but they will be victorious. GG's in the chat, and they will move forward in the tournament.